Hey everyone, welcome to tonight's episode, which is episode 2 of Healthy Kids Simple Solutions. And what we're going to be talking about today is fidgeting, poor concentration if your kid can't sit still in the classroom, and in combination to these three things, they may also have bedwetting, and how all four of those things can actually be tied to one common denominator. So what is that? What it is a spinal galant reflex, and what that is it's a reflex that you have in your lower back down here, and what it does is it makes it very hypersensitive to stimulus. So what it is you have this reflex when you're about you have this reflex when you're born, and then by the time you're about 6 months old, it should go away. So what happens is once it goes away, your brain can develop the way that it should, but if you picture or if you see a baby and they're less than 4 to 6 months old and you were to stroke their low back on either side of their spine, whichever side you stroke, they're going to move away from it and they're going to kind of to move around. And what that is it's the reflex. So you stroke their low back and then they move away from it. So fast forward, that should go away by 6 months old. If they retain that and it never goes away at that 6 month mark, and then they're school age and they still have it, that becomes an issue, and that's where it can affect concentration and short-term memory. It's because it's constantly irritating the brain. So what it's doing is it's constantly vying for the child's attention. If it's always getting stimulated, whether that's through their clothing or their waistband, it could just be from the back of the chair that keeps rubbing against it, and then they're always wanting to fidget away from that. And then when you do that, then it's overriding your brain and you can't focus on what you're supposed to be doing because it's thinking about this reflex that's always getting elicited. So they're going to have difficulty sitting still for any length of time. They're going to be that ants in the pants kid. Sometimes when they're, say, at home, they may actually prefer to lie on their stomach and do homework on the floor. And the reason for that is because they can't concentrate when they're sitting because it keeps getting elicited, and they're always wanting to move around because their low back is always getting stimulated in that spinal galant region. So when they're lying on their stomach on the floor, then they're obviously not getting any stimulus to their back, and they're better able to concentrate. So the most common symptoms of kids with this spinal galant is fidgeting and bedwetting, poor concentration, poor short-term memory, and they could even have some hip rotation to one side when walking, so they might have a little bit of an abnormal gait or an abnormal walk. Spinal galant is going to help you develop your inner ear, which is your vestibular system. It's where you're going to hear, and your balance system, which is required for you to begin creeping, which is rocking back and forth, and then crawling, and then getting up into a walk. So once again, this should go away by about 6 months of age. If it's retained past a year, the child may have trouble controlling their legs when walking and running, so they're going to look unbalanced. They may self-trip themselves. They may be kind of uncoordinated because of this reflex. It's found in kids who have that poor bladder control and continue to wet the bed even after the age of 5. Almost all my bedwetting cases, they have this spinal galant when the patient comes in. So also, if you think about it, you have it as a baby, and then it should go away by 6 months of age, but it doesn't. And then you hold on to it and you're still a year old, and then you're 5 years old, and then you're in school and you're 10 years old and you still have it, and you could still have it when you're 25. And what they found is if it never goes away, it's actually been commonly found in adults who suffer from IBS, so that could be linked as well. It's going to affect, like I said earlier, your posture, your gait, the way that you move. It could actually contribute to scoliosis, especially if the reflex is just on one side. So if you're only contracting one way over and over and over, you could see how that could maybe contribute to a scoliotic curve. So this is the type of stuff that we're going to be covering in our workshop that's on February 26th out here in Elkhorn. It's going to be awesome. So it's unraveling neurodevelopmental disorders. It's specifically for kids with like ADHD, or they're on the spectrum, or dyslexia, or OCD, Tourette's, learning disorders, but it can also be for kids who don't have an official diagnosis, but they're just struggling in school. So this is going to be the perfect workshop for parents to come learn how to take these tips and start implementing them that night so that your kid can better succeed in that environment of school. So if this sounds like your kid, and you want to take advantage of that, and you're like, I already know this sounds exactly like him or her, You can always schedule a consultation with me. I'd be glad to sit down and discuss your case with your kid one-on-one, and even do a primitive reflex assessment to see which primitive reflexes that he or she has, because there's many more than just a spinal gluant that can affect school-related problems, whether that's academics and concentration, or maybe socially. They're just struggling to make friends, or it could be behaviorally. So all those things are tied together with primitive reflexes. But if this sounded interesting, I would love if you RSVP'd for that workshop, or at the very least, sharing this information to a parent who could really use it and go to that workshop. So the link should be down below or somewhere in the description, so you'll be able to find it. It's free. So I hope to see you guys there, and I will see you guys tomorrow evening for another Facebook Live.